All right, on today's episode of the NBA Draft Junkies podcast, we are going to start our conference play talk. We're having a round table with myself. I am James Barlowe. I got my guy Leif, Thulin with me, and also Latif Love. So we're trying something new. Y'all kind of young, and I'm not really a fan of Phil Jackson like that, so I'm not going to call this the triangle offense. I'll figure something out for us by the end of the episode, so stay tuned. Shout out to everyone tuning in. We got a lot to cover. So, let's just get right to it. We're going to lead off today's episode. We're going to talk about Darren Peterson, Kansas shooting guard, 26 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 23 minutes, 5 of 10 from 3, 2 blocks. He played 18 minutes in the first half, played 5 minutes in the second half. I believe he sat the last 11:30 of the second half. He was on the end of the bench. If you search Darren Peterson's name on Twitter, you're not going to read some kind things from Kansas fans, but that's a whole different conversation. Latif, your thoughts on Darren Peterson's performance in the loss against Central Florida?
I would like to comment on the Kansas fans real quickly.
Go ahead.
I find it incredibly, for lack of better words, lame how he's been getting talked about. Like, this is people that think that Darren Peterson is purposely sitting out, or his dad is trying to scam Kansas, or he's trying to steal money. It's just it's not logical. Darren Peterson, he wants to be out there. Nobody wants to sit on the bench. Nobody wants the fans to be talking like that. Hamstrings and quads are just extremely tricky injuries to deal with. Like, that's obvious. I mean, it feels very obvious. And I get being frustrated because you're number one recruit in the country, a player you're paying millions of dollars to play for a team is not playing. Your team is suffering for it with losing to UCF. But if Darren was fully healthy and ready to be out there, he would be out there. So I just think a lot of the conversation around that has been, it's just been, I don't know how to say it. It's not tasteful to me.
I'll say it for you. It's like, if Darren dropped out of school, no, Darren could literally leave Kansas and be a top 3 pick. I don't think he doesn't need the situation he's not. I mean, these games help to build his case for being a number 1 pick, number 2 pick through wherever you may have him, but he's not a secret. You know what I'm saying? Like, NBA scouts know exactly who he is. They've known about him for years. And he's trying to go out there and play. I saw somebody say, why is he not kicking chairs when he gets subbed out? And I'm like, that's just not his personality. But go ahead, Latif. Your thoughts, though, on Darren Peterson, just in general. What did you see from his performance this particular game?
He also could just probably do better for his stock not to play anymore this year. But from this game, every time Darren steps on the floor, he just reminds the country of the talent he is. It's been very, somewhat different than what we saw in high school. My concern coming in, not concern, what I wanted to see him improve coming into this year was his 3-point rate. Because pre-NCAA, it wasn't that high. Now he won't stop shooting threes. So his shot making is ridiculous. On and off the ball. I think it's been really impressive how he's been able to work off the ball this year, because I think Darren is a on-ball creator. That's what he was in high school. He's had to adjust to a different role at Kansas, because when he does have the ball in pick-and-roll situations, he's getting guarded. He's getting a lot of attention because Kansas doesn't have a lot of spacing. The offense is just lethargic in general. But I've been very impressed with his ability to play off the ball. The shot making was there. It looked like he was healthy in the first half. He looked like he had a lot of his bounce back. He had that alley-oop dunk that was pretty encouraging. But it was more of what we've seen from him. I think he scored over 100 points in about 127 minutes. He's been very effective when he's been on the floor. It hasn't been for as long as we want it, but when he's on the floor, he's been effective. The defense is pretty good as well. He had the 2 blocks. And I think a steal as well. So that was pretty good. What I've been waiting to see is more what we saw in high school. Hasn't got to the rim a ton in this sample. He got to the foul line in this game, but hasn't got to the foul line overall in this sample of college games. Didn't think he shot it well inside the arc. So I need to see that ability to get to the rim, get half court dunks, because that's what we saw in high school. I do think that the injury is still hampering him, his ability to get downhill into the paint. I do think the fact that Kansas has some of the worst spacing context in the country is hurting him as well. But I think I was overall really impressed. However, I do want to see him get to the rim more. Pretty much, that was
Yep.
it.
You mentioned his 3-point shooting. He's at a 51% 3-point rate, which
Yeah,
is ridiculous. I think he was at like 32 in high school on the prep level. So he's getting his threes up. Leaf, your thoughts on Darren Peterson?
I have a really simple take because I think he's fantastic, but he's scoring. He's got 100 points in 127 minutes, right? And he's doing it while not being able to drive because he doesn't trust his hamstring. And then there's the other part is, pun intended on this one, he's hamstrung by the lack of spacing. Like they played two bigs and Tiller hit 4 threes against North Carolina. Aside from that, hasn't shot the ball well. Flory's always near the rack. Melvin Council played out of his mind against NC State, but other than that, not a shooter. And Cole Rosario and amongst the other guys that have rotated at wing don't shoot the ball well. So I agree with Latif in that regard. But my biggest take is this guy is scoring 23 and a half in Big 12 play, just fresh off sitting and recovering. And he's scoring 19 against NC State while their whole defense is geared to stop him and daring guys like Melvin Council to shoot the ball, and he can't drive. Like he does not look explosive at all. He looked a little better with that alley-oop dunk, and he had one little like rim grazing dunk against NC State. But for the most part, this guy is hampered and not exploding and driving. They know he's going to shoot the three, and he's hitting the three at a wildly consistent rate, hitting difficult leaners and stuff like that, while everyone knows that it's going to be him scoring the ball and he can't punish how close they are. So I think he's one of the most gifted scorers I've ever seen play college basketball. And it's a real pity that we can't see him at full strength. And I think it's courageous of him to keep playing because honestly, I don't think he needs to play a game and he'd still be the number one pick because I think he's that good.
I agree. He's shooting 44% on 7 attempts per game. And just preparing for this podcast, in 5 games, he has 1 less block than AJ Dybantsa. He has more blocks than Nate Amen. And I think Amen has played 14 or 15 games. And we haven't really seen he defended pretty well, at least it helped side this last game against Central Florida. But we really haven't seen that like monster defensive performance from him yet. I agree with you guys. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent. See him more. Don't totally understand if he decided not to play, but I think you got to commend him for his efficiency when he does play. And like you said, like he's playing in the phone booth, and I want to say in the first half he probably rushed a few shots, but once he sees that ball go in, it's like, oh shoot, this dude is extremely hot. And then like Leaf, you're a shooter. His rotation, the way that his ball hits the net, like that's the sign of a pure shooter. Darren Peterson, we wish him well. We'll see if he plays this Tuesday. If he does play, imagine he'll be on some sort of minutes restriction. It's just halftime that gets him, man. That sitting down for 10 minutes, that hamstring is tight, and then we don't get to see the same level of activity from him in the second half. Moving on, potential number 1 pick as well, depending on who you ask. AJ Dybantsa in a win against Kansas State, 24 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot 8 for 15 from the field, but he did have 7 turnovers. Leaf, what were your thoughts on AJ Dybantsa's performance in a win against Kansas State?
Not terribly concerned by the turnovers. I think he's done a pretty good job for the last month of being the primary facilitator for this team. Like, yes, they have Rob Wright. Yes, they have Richie Saunders. But the advantage creator, the guy who makes the offense go for BYU when they're clicking at their best is AJ. And I told you I don't love how he always gets into the elbow and does his little bump spin or bump right into the middle and taking a mid-range J. But he's diversified his game. Like we saw him against Clemson, that second half takeover with the lack of predictability, see more of that twitchiness that everyone talked about in the prep school of how he could go and be a Paul George type where you see these crossovers and then all of a sudden stride to the rim and he's going to dunk on people. You saw that. And so to answer the question about Kansas State, turnovers are going to happen to freshmen no matter how precocious they are. And I feel like these turnovers are going to be the stat that grabs our attention, and rightfully so. But the stat that really stands out for me is in the month of December, they won 6 games. He averaged 28, 8, and 8. And he shot 70% from the field in those games. So I think he's done everything to claim that number one. I still have Darren Peterson number one because I came in very, very confident in Darren Peterson. He's done nothing to dissuade me. But AJ's actually impressed me more than I could have been expecting, because 28, 8, and 8 in a month for a guy as young as AJ is, no matter how precocious he is, I'm pretty impressed. And so the turnovers are just a bump in the road.
Latif, your
I
thoughts on
don't
AJ Dybantsa's performance?
I don't think that the turnovers were indicative of his like playmaking value in his game. Like I think that it doesn't really paint a picture of how he facilitated this game and how he's playmaked over the last month or so. Some of them were careless. Some of them were some scoring turnovers. But I think his passing was pretty good in this game, honestly. And he's just been doing pretty much what he's been doing over the last month or so. I think, and I've said this, that I think AJ is the best wing scoring prospect since Kevin Durant. Probably the best scoring prospect in general since Kevin Durant. And maybe you think Darren Peterson is the better scorer, which I mean I can hear that conversation. But both of them would be in this conversation. But he's pretty unstoppable as a scorer. Now, I will say over that last month they played some weak competition. I think Clemson was near the top 25 in net, so that was a good test for him, and he performed really well in the second half. But outside of that, I think they played some lackluster competition. So I'm waiting for them to really get in the swing of Big 12 play because they'll face some really good teams. But his willingness to get to the rim and get to the free throw line, operating that mid range game, he's been really really efficient there. I'm just still. I think he's improved the most out of the three of the big three. He's improved the most. I've been really impressed with his how quickly he's learned as a facilitator and as a playmaker. In that Clemson game, in a couple other games, you can see him learning on the fly. Like when a defense sends a look at him multiple times when he's operating in that post area, he's going to react differently that second or third time. He's learning on the fly as a playmaker in these games, and that was also present in the Kansas State game. What I'm still looking for from him, for him to get to my number one pick, like valid, is just more defensive consistency. Like it's just not there right now. Obviously, Boozer has his awards. I don't know if we're going to talk about that today, but
I
Darren
guess
is pretty consistent. Yeah, Darren is pretty consistent as a defender. I'm just looking for AJ to be more consistent defensively. Some people don't like the stocks generalization, but he needs to get some stocks. Like he needs to be more active. Well, he's really active on the ball. He needs to develop his ability to process off the ball as a defender is what I'm looking for.
He had 3 steals against Kansas State. You mentioned the December schedule was kind of poop, but he had a 2 steal game, another 2 steal game, another 3 steal game, and a 5 steal game. So again, these aren't the best competition, but if he wasn't doing it against these guys, we would definitely be talking about him. But like I agree with what you said as far as like his offensive game has been, I want to say like next to Darius Acuff, their improvement or them being like impressing me from what they've added since graduating from high school to the college level. Those two guys really stand out the most to me as far as guys that we were like tracking, not anyone that like snuck up on the radar. But AJ, like I said, I would like to see the defensive numbers improve, but at the same time, like he has the ability to do it. So, and I mentioned on another pod, I think I did it with Leif, I can't remember, but like I know Jaylen Brown had low stock, low block percentage numbers at Cal, and you know Jaylen Brown feels like he's the best 2-way wing in the NBA. He did a good job on Kawhi Leonard the other night. I think I am trying to evaluate defense. I'm trying to lean into the numbers, but also sometimes it's just a matter of will a guy buy. And one thing that I do like about AJ that I did see in person, McDonald's All American game, he played the 4. The FIBA under 19s, he played off the ball. So there is some ability to adjust. We'll be able to make those adjustments or be able to change his role in defense in the NBA. That remains to be seen. But he's having a phenomenal season. Can't wait to see what the rest of the season looks like for him in the Big 12. Latif,
I
you
had one.
brought
I
up.
had
Go
one
ahead,
thing
Leif.
about AJ. Yeah, so AJ, I saw him play live against Wisconsin, and I also saw him play live against North Carolina. And North Carolina, the focus for me was, okay, it's AJ, and then if Caleb Wilson guards him, like, wow, Caleb Wilson had like this emerging party, and we talked about that a little bit, James and I did. But what ended up sticking out to me against Wisconsin is he guarded Blackwell, who, in my opinion, I thought had a good chance to be an all-conference guard. He hasn't gotten off to the start I would have liked, but that's a guy who's quick and drives with force. And AJ's length and lateral quickness deterred him at all moments. Like, Blackwell did not drive by AJ once. He tried to use his body into AJ, and AJ has the functional strength to stop him. While I agree, I think AJ is the worst defender in terms of like the intangibles of, oh, did he poke that away? Did he block a shot than Darren Peterson? But I think part of that is Darren Peterson's better on the defense than many people want to say. And so when you compare the two, it almost looks like a slight to AJ. But I actually think AJ defensively is going to be just fine. A lot of it is want to. And I know that you want everyone to be a really good defender, but these guys are 18, 19 years old and asked to score 30 on different days. And I kind of think the defense of like, okay, if I'm guarding one of their primary players, I'm going to want to. And when you're playing those teams, like you mentioned, Latif, not particularly difficult to play against, I'm going to focus on scoring 30. I think he gets lazy and a little bit complacent defensively. But I think the tools are more important than the actual statistics in this case.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And also, I mean, thinking back to that game against Prolific Prep in high school, yes, he ate a lot of that 60 points that Darren Peterson had, but like he was the one that was guarding him versus Darren was playing help side defense the majority of that game. Again, it's hard to defend somebody putting up a 60 ball, but I feel like AJ is a competitor and maybe, hopefully, thankfully, we'll pray for it. We'll get that matchup at the end of January between Kansas and BYU, and we see who guards who or see if he takes that challenge. But like I said, I'm with certain guys, I'm kind of leaning more so towards do you have the ability first? And then we'll see if you have the want to when we get to the NBA. And I do believe he has the ability. Like I said, the measurements are going to be there. I do think he is a competitor. He just has to keep his controller plugged in on weak side help because he does have the tendency to watch the ball. But again, like you mentioned, 18-year-old kids, these things do happen. Latif, we're going to talk about your guy, Cameron Boozer. It's like he had a ho-hum game against Florida State. He had a measly 17, 5, and 9, and he shot 5 of 9 from the field. He had 4 steals. Latif, the last time I had you on, you said you had concerns about Cameron Boozer's defense. Did any of those concerns go away? Was his defense as good as the 4 steals indicate? How are you feeling about his performance against Florida State?
Oh, absolutely not. The defense was pretty bad in this game. And I'm not a part of. Well, I mean, I'm not a part of the. Oh, you need to. Well, obviously, everybody need to watch the game, but I don't really accuse people of not watching games because they use stats, because that's like something we see in the draft space. But no, his defense wasn't good in this game. They attacked him a lot. In anybody that can change speeds got past him pretty easily. Duke's defense in general was terrible in this game. It's been bad for a
Florida
month.
State was
And
making some crazy shots at the end of the game. I did catch like this late in the second half when they were, trying to like Duke just couldn't. I'm sorry to interrupt, but couldn't create separation because it looked like every time, and it wasn't like indication of Boozer's defense, but Florida State just got hot and they kept making shots. But go ahead about Boozer's defense.
yeah, I think Duke's defense in general over the last month has been pretty bad. Um, I think it really showed up in that Texas Tech game, or no, it first showed up to me in that Albion Christian game where they where I think Albion Christian was in the game in the first half. But in this game specifically, I just think that they clearly were attacking Boozer in switches, and they were getting what they wanted at the rim. he wasn't really able to stop anybody. He had a few good contests, but people were still making the shots. Obviously, with Boozer, I know he can get steals because he has good recognition. His skill, like processing offense, transfers over to the defense end. He's able to be there before an action happens. He has pretty good hands as well, so he's going to get steals. I think his steal percentage is actually pretty good right now. In their top 100 games and against competition, his block percentage is really low. I just don't think he can really he can't play the 5 because he just can't really alter shots at the rim. He doesn't affect shots at the rim. He can't get off the floor. He has to be there early or it's a bucket. When you look at the stats with um with Patrick on and Boozer on, their defense is like really good at the rim. When Pat is on and Boozer's off, is much better. With Boozer, no Pat, it's much worse. So like their defense is, in terms of guarding the rim, is really dependent on Pat being a 5 or Malik being a 5. He just can't anchor a defense. He's not particularly like good in space against guards. So I think he's pretty position locked defensively to the 4. And the conundrum we're really running into is that he's probably best defensively as a 4, and he's probably best offensively as a 5. Yep.
All right, so Latif, I gotta interrupt you, man. This is my show. All right, Latif, headstrong on Karen Boozer being number 1. I'm not saying he's not number 1. I am asking you, where are you at on the panic meter? Again, this is before anybody, whatever may Karen Boozer will be like, he should be a multiple time All-Star. But this draft features 2 other guys who could also be multiple time All-Stars who are in conversations for the number 1 pick. But with that being said, Latif, panic meter 1 through 5. As far as moving him outside of number 1, where are you at after seeing the defensive concerns for multiple games?
Maybe like a 3, 2 or 3. I'm honestly, I thought about it the other day. I mean, especially out of this latest Darren Peterson performance, and I don't want to over-index on like one game. I was always very, very like, it's either Boozer, like I have Boozer right here and then DP like right here. Like it was very, very close for me. AJ, I wanted to see more playmaking, more defense consistency. Some of that he's shown us so far this year. But I do think that if Darren Peterson can draw more fouls, if he can start to get to the rim more, I'm going to move him to 1 because of everything he brings to the table on the court. But and so I wanted to see his 3-point rate go up. He's giving me that. Now I need to see more of the on-ball creation, more of the getting to the rim, and if he can do that, which I think he can, if he ever gets healthy or just can get to the rim more, which I think he will, then I'll move him to 1. I think I'm pretty confident that I'm going to have Darren Peterson 1 at some point in this cycle. It depends on what he's able to do. But also, I think I'm going to revert to his priors. Like, if let's say his profile shakes out like this, where he's shooting so many threes and his shot making is really potent. I can't just forget what I saw in high school when he was healthy. Like, I know this kid can get to the rim. I know he can. Like, I understand that we watch it for like 15 games this year. He can't get to the rim. I would just assume that he's hurt because I didn't watch. I didn't watch 50 games of high school film for him getting to the rim whenever he wanted, him having really good bursts to go to college, and then he can't get to the rim at all. That's not really feasible to me.
I agree.
But yeah, I think at some point I'm going to have Darren Peterson at 1, depending on his ability to get to the rim and the foul line. That's pretty much all
Really
I
quick.
need. His assistant. Go ahead.
Really quick. Is there any world where AJ moves Boozer to number 3 in your on your board?
Yeah, I mean, there's a world for sure. Because AJ has really impressed me this year. With his ability, his again, he has grown the most out of the 3 this year with his playmaking. The defense has been better recently. I just want to see consistency. Now, I actually kind of disagree a bit with. I think AJ most of the time does try. To be honest, I think he actually does try most of the time. I think he has to learn how to play defense. I generally do. In terms of screen navigation, it's not really good right now. In terms of how he is diagnosing like when to tag a roller or when to help off the ball. He has to learn those things. Sometimes he does like everybody falls asleep off the ball, but I think his recognition and learning how to rotate and how to be a team defender, he has to learn those things. I don't necessarily think it's him not trying because he does have the motor. I do think he's gonna be a really good one-on-one defender. I want to see how he defends when he has to chase, when he has to guard the point of attack, when he has to operate off the ball. But I think AJ is making his case as the best scorer in this class, obviously. So there's a world definitely where I can move Boozer to 3, especially if I can't wrap my head around what position he's going to really be effective most at in the NBA. Because again, I do think he is a 4 defensively, but a 5 offensively, and that can be a struggle for team building for sure. Because he's better offensively with Pat off the floor, but he's better defensively with Pat on the floor. If that makes sense.
Well, the interesting thing about Duke, and I agree about AJ in the sense of what I was referring to is I think effort is his thing when he's guarding one-on-one. I think he tries hard defending at the point of attack and does well. The screen navigation, the off-ball, intangible stuff, I agree. That he's the worst of the 3 in terms of feel for the game and just kind of reading it. But to me, the skills and the ability to impact one-on-one defense are there. And so that's what I was mostly saying. But as for Boozer, the interesting thing is Malik Brown's the best defender maybe in the entire country, definitely the ACC, if you ask me. And it makes it difficult for Boozer because, like you said, he's ground bound. So he's not a rim protector. But what Malik Brown does so well is he gets out and hedges at 40 feet and influences passes. So it makes it, if it gets through, Boozer would have to be a rim protector. So I agree. It's interesting how they defend, but it's hard to take that guy who's so disruptive and play him near the paint, which is where he'd be a better rim protector than Cam. As for Boozer, I agree with you. And I've said this to James. I've said this to other people on Draft World. I think he is a 5 on offense and a 4 on defense. The only way that works is if you have 2 bigs. And the NBA is starting to become a 2 big type of thing. And it's less important to be a prototypical shot blocker if you're like stupendously skilled offensively as the 5. Like you're seeing Jokic, you're seeing Şengün, you're seeing guys like Derek Queen, like all these different guys can do it. And so I'm starting to get a little less worried than I would be in what was a 1 big league up until, 3 years ago where it became popularized to play 2 big.
Quick, before we move on from Cameron Boozer, best case scenario, if we, the panel, believe he's a 5 on offense, if he's confused about positions, best case scenario, who do you want to select him that will help him out, help them out, best fit? Latif.
I was just about to go look at the lottery. Like who has the picks. I think Washington was really good with Alex.
I think the Wizards would be the best fit for him for the teams that are in that particular range. Leif.
I wouldn't mind him on my Utah Jazz. I mean, you get a healthy Walker Kessler, and it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, because you play Laurie at the 3 still. That works.
And then he'd be an offensive hub. I kind of like that, but I just want a good player on my Jazz. That's the only team I'll think about for the lottery. So that would be my answer for any of the 3 that you asked.
I definitely think he can play the 4. It's just the way that he's being used right now. All of his play type distributions is more sort of 5. Like it's the posting up, the cross switches, the trailing in transition as a 5, as well as some things he does. So they're more so using him as a 5 and not really as a 4. At Duke,
he plays like Vucevic in college.
Yeah,
like
pretty much.
Exactly like Vucevic.
They're not really using him as. I think he can play the 4. He has the ability to do so. Like he can even run pick and rolls. But the way they're using him right now is play types are as a 5, and it was like the same. It was like that as well as at Columbus in high school, especially his later 2 years. So yeah, I don't know.
Stan, speaking of high school, we're gonna get to his AAU teammate, Caleb Wilson. Now, I was in person at the SMU game. I got to see SMU and North Carolina play. This was it yesterday, since this is recording on Sunday night. Everybody was there, like everybody. I got there early, try to get there hour and a half before the game, and you see like the log of like the seating chart of who's who, and basically the entire NBA had representation at this game. Off the top of my head, that I did see the Mavs. I saw the the Jazz were there. I saw somebody from Minnesota. The GM for the Spurs, he had a couple guys with him. He was there like super early. I think he walked in like right behind me. Caleb Wilson in that loss against SMU, he had 13 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 of 11 shooting. He didn't have his normal 20 and 10 performance. I also don't necessarily think that he played as well as the box score said. But again, sometimes really it's good and bad that like an off night for him is still 13, 7, and 4. But my concerns, and I know Leif had to get a takeoff, so I'm gonna get to you, Leif. But my concerns with Caleb Wilson, seeing them in person, they're very much there. Like his balance with contact in the half court, he's sliding his feet, he's knocked off balance. If it's not a dunk, he kind of struggles. The jump shot, I did get to see him there early. The jump shot doesn't look bad, but they don't go in. And he's like the reverse of Boozer. I think he's a 5 on, he's the same one, but he's a 5 on offense, but he's in a 4's body. And I do have him in my top 5, but I do kind of have some concerns. Love the motor, love the activity. He's like 40% on layups though. Very good athlete. I think he's a good passer, but just like he's a tweener, and a lot of, to me, what his offensive upside hinges on is if he's going to be able to knock shots down. Excuse me. I would think he's sub 70% from the free throw line on the season. He's like 69, but he's really close, and he didn't shoot the ball particularly well at the prep level. So like I'm kind of trying to figure out what he is long term. Not to say that his production isn't fake, but I just want to see how it is going to translate. Leif, we talked about this prior to recording. You wanted to get some stuff off about Caleb Wilson. The floor is yours.
So Caleb Wilson, I saw him play AJ, and my initial take was like, oh, there's some more substance to this than I thought, because I thought I saw this like, oh, Caleb Wilson, top 5 guy, and all I saw was a guy who was a better athlete than everyone in high school. And I'll admit I didn't watch a ton of him in high school, but when I watched him, I usually don't love those guys that their film is dependent on them being better athletes. And usually my lack of faith in those type of guys has been rewarded. That there have been some busts I have not really been a fan of. Like Justin Edwards would be one where he was just bigger and stronger than guys, and I didn't see it at all. But I'm not comparing the two. The point I'm making is athletically, he impressed me against AJ. Like I thought he won that matchup more so because he was able to stay in front, not because he was a better player. But I had so much higher expectations for AJ than I did Caleb Wilson. And he said, okay, like this guy enters the conversation. Last time I was on with James, we had a conversation of who would we do, who would we take for different teams at like kind of the 3 through 6 range. And I expressed my concern. If you're drafting in a draft where the 3 top guys, I don't think are necessarily all-stars. I think you're drafting basically, are they all NBA guys? Like you're sorting between, can one of those 3, if you're picking one, you're trying to choose the guy who can be the most likely to be an all-NBA guy perennially. Number 2, you're probably getting an all-NBA guy occasionally. And number 3, you're getting a multiple-time all-star. And after that, I still want to get a star. I still want a guy that can be the franchise-altering guy. And I don't know if Caleb Wilson changes the trajectory of a franchise. I think he can be a second or third best player on a team who's a very good NBA player because he's super energetic. He plays incredibly hard. He plays with great force, plays multiple positions defensively. I think he can guard 2 through 5 in the NBA, actually. Like, I think his defense is going to put him in a lot of people's laps as like, oh, this guy fell to us, and now we're getting this switchable monster. But offensively, you don't want the guy you're taking number 4 to his bag be just dunks. And like he has turnaround jumpers, but what offensive source of like offense since Dirk has really been like a mid-range turnaround? And he is nowhere near Dirk as a shooter, and nor is anyone. But my point being is like That's what he does. So I watch him frequently now, and I think, wow, I love the way he plays. But if I'm drafting at 4, I'm terrified. And so I watched him the last time. I've had this like body comp. I think his body is identical to Nick Claxton. Like they are both long, they're both slender more than they are sturdy, and they both jump very well. And he's a better athlete, more twitchy than Claxton, but they look the same. In terms of the effect of how he plays, he reminds me of like Gerald Wallace, someone who's going to get his hands on everything and run the floor and be a guy who messes your team up. Like everyone says Marvin Williams because Marvin Williams went to UNC. Marvin was a fine athlete. Caleb's a superb athlete, but Marvin had a fine shot, and Caleb doesn't have a very good shot. I think Caleb's a better prospect than Marvin, and Marvin went to perpetuated his way above Darren Williams and Chris Paul, which made no sense. But I think that in this draft class, it's not apples to apples. I would say you're basically getting a energy bunny defensive monster with decent offensive skills. You're not getting a franchise altering talent. So I'd take a Michael Brown, depending my team, over a Caleb Wilson. And I kind of was talking to people. Some people said Josh Smith with better shot selection. I'm still, I don't quite see that one. I'm going with my comp for the time being. I'm going Gerald Wallace mixed with Nick Claxton, but he's better than both. Like I'm not saying that he is those guys. I think he's a better version of both those players, but neither of those guys, no matter how you max out their specs, are franchise changing players.
Latif, your thoughts on Caleb Wilson?
I thought, yeah, I don't think he was necessarily too good in this game. SMU is a very good team. And I think that he hasn't been nearly as effective against top 100 opponents so far. And so I'm very, very intrigued to watch him in conference play. The ACC is obviously a lot better this year. But I pretty much agree. My conundrum with Caleb Wilson and James noticed, I like productiveness out of my prospects. However, though, it does matter how you're getting this production and if it will translate to the NBA. And I think that offensively, he just has a lot of warts offensively. And there's been a lot of conversation about the layups numbers, right? My guy on Twitter, Dre, actually did like he's a Jazz fan. I don't know if you know him, Leif. His name is
Yeah,
Dre.
no, he's sent me many things. Not recently, but I've interacted
Yeah.
with him plenty.
Yeah, he did like this whole study on how much like layup percent matters for like in comparison like dunks for like players, Caleb's size. So I'm not necessarily saying it matters that much. It is not ideal
Was
to
it
have a 40.
for the people who don't have that tweet? What was the study, the synopsis of the study?
I think he did like he did a position base and like correlated how much your layup percentage matter to like your finishing numbers. It's much more important for guards to have high
Then big.
layup percentage than bigs, obviously. Because bigs are close to the rim, they could dunk stuff more. So he found that it wouldn't be a thing he's looking for out of his bigs, but or like I don't know. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I will say, I mean, Caleb does dunk everything. He out athletes pretty much everybody. I think he'll be able to have some of that success at the NBA level. But he is functionally a 5 in a 4's body in terms of like he's very skinny. He's a 5 in the 4's body. As a 4 offensively that can't shoot, that's not going to like initiate a lot of offense from the perimeter. Not a great handler in the half court. Not a great mid-range shooter. Not a great pull-up shooter. So that's pretty worrisome for me if I'm picking him high in this class. Defensively, I think the defense is excellent. I think he's probably the second best defender in his class from guys that are going to be drafted, especially higher in the class in the top 10. But I think he a little bit has feasted on some weak competition because against top 100 competition, he's at 53 true shooting percentage. He's shooting 55% from 2, and over 7 from 3. He's just been offensively a lot less effective against top 100 competition. So what we saw from SMU is pretty much what we've seen when he's gotten to these tougher games. Against Michigan State, he struggled a little bit. I think St. Bonaventure might be a top 100 team too. I'm not sure.
Really struggled that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 5-game sample size. They played a lot of weaker competition, and offensively he's just been less effective against tougher competition so far. You mentioned his balance, but he doesn't have the handle in the half court to really initiate offense. He pretty much just does straight line drives when he's driving to the rim. So I have him still in my 5 to 7 range. I like what he brings to the table in terms of his defense, athleticism. The offensive rebounding is really good. The transition play is really good. He has pretty good feel for the game, I think. It just depends on who I am taking him, but I do think he is a conversation from like the top 5 to top 7 in this class for sure.
Yeah, he's somebody I think that while they don't need, he's not a 5. If I were at his camp and I saw the Pacers, I'm like, you know what, get me to Indiana because Tyrese Halliburton's gonna help me out a lot, and Rick Carlisle is one of the better coaches in the league. My thing with Caleb, seeing him in person, he doesn't have, like, they were throwing him the ball in the mid post, and it's just a face up because there's no jabs. There's no face-up game. Like, he only puts the ball on the ground, in transition, which he does well. And then in the second half, like, I think he shot the ball 3 times. One of them was a fast break dunk, and he just looked disinterested. And there were a couple times where he didn't get the ball in the post, and he was pouting. My biggest fear with Caleb Wilson before we move on is that, and not necessarily a fear, but I just keep seeing, like, Marvin Bagley with really good defense. I don't know what happened to Marvin Bagley. He averaged 15 as a rookie, and then it's just injuries has been a concern. But Marvin Bagley was like, at Duke, he was 21 and 10, rebounding machine,
That's
very
a
good
really good
athlete.
that's a really good comp. The only thing, and I don't want you to cut you off, but I have one question to qualify it is, Marv was a 4 at times on that team and a 5 at other times, and I
Hmm.
know that's the same as Wilson, but he was, like, right next to the hoop at all times. There was very
Yeah,
few, like, jabs. Does it help your evaluation that Wilson's trying to do these mid posts, or does it hurt it just because 'cause we're seeing it? Because
I
I
think
think if I'd seen Marv try to do these jabs, I would have been lower, but
mhm,
instead I saw 20 and 10 every night. The guy could touch the top of the backboard and
like
rebounded everything. So I thought,
everything.
"Wow, this guy's awesome." If Wilson were just doing that, I think I'd be higher on him, but because I'm seeing him try different things and he's a little smaller than Marv, I'm a little more concerned. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you think
Well,
the exposure to that helps or hurts Wilson?
I think it hurts because in no way are we giving him the ball in the mid post in the NBA, for
Agreed.
one. So it's like we're giving him the ball, we're putting him in a bad position. You watched that Michigan State game. Nothing good happened when he got the ball in the mid post. It's like I said, he's off balance. He just doesn't have what the kids call a bag. Like it's either a face up or I'm trying to go by somebody and doesn't have the strongest frame yet, and that contact knocks him off balance. And stuff just doesn't work for him. But again, if you say Marvin Bagley with good defense, I mean Marvin Bagley, when he is healthy, he's productive as a backup 5 because he can feast on the slower guys who are your backup 5s. But at the same time, like Latif said, or you guys both said, am I drafting that at 4, considering that a lot of his success offensively at the 4 hinges on if he's going to be able to make jumpers. That's where I am on Caleb Wilson. Again, production is great. Like I said, the motor is great. I just watching him, I was kind of underwhelmed, even though, like, if you just look at the box score, he had 13, 7, 4. He's a very good passer, very patient in the post, but at the same time, like, you don't have to double him in the post because you can guard him one-on-one. They didn't put a big on him, SMU. The guy that they had guard him, Washington, is a 6'7" small forward, and he was able to frustrate him. And like I said, you give him the ball, Caleb Wilson, it's just a face-up jumper. Again, don't think that's how he's going to play at the NBA, but he's going to have to be able to stretch the floor, I think, for him to maximize his offensive value.